The Road to Ruin by Donald E. Westlake. Read by William Dufries. Chapter 1. Dortmunder sat in his living room to watch the local evening news and had just about come to the conclusion that every multiple-dwelling residence in the state of New Jersey would eventually burn to the ground, 3 per news cycle, when the doorbell rang. He looked up, surprised, not expecting anybody, and then became doubly surprised when he realized it had not been the familiar blat of the hall doorbell right upstairs here, but the never-heard ing of the street-level bell, sounding in the kitchen. Rising, he left the living room and stepped out to the hall to see May looking down at him from the kitchen, her hands full of today's gleanings from her job at Safeway, as she said, "Who is it?" "Not this bell," he told her, jabbing a thumb over his shoulder at the hall door. "The street bell." "The street bell?" Dortmunder clomped on back to the kitchen, to the intercom on the wall there that had never worked, that the landlord had just repaired in a blatant ploy to raise the rent. Not sure of the etiquette or operation of this piece of machinery for so long on the inactive list, he leaned his lips close to the mouthpiece and said, "Yeah?" "It's Andy," said a voice that sounded like Andy being imitated by a talking car. "Andy?" May said, "Let him in, John." "Oh, yeah." Dortmunder pressed the white bone button, and yet another unpleasant sound bounced around the kitchen. Will wonders never cease," May said, because Andy Kelp, who was occasionally Dortmunder's associate in certain enterprises, usually just walked on into their place, having enjoyed the opportunity to hone his lock-picking skills. Dortmunder said, "What if he rings this one up here, too?" "He might," May said. "You never know." "It's an awful sound," Dortmunder said, and went down the hall to prevent this by opening the door, where he could listen to the echoes as Andy Kelp thudded up the stairs. When the thuds stopped, he leaned out to see Kelp himself, a sharp-nosed, cheerful guy, dressed casually in blacks and dark grays, come down the worn carpet in the hall. "You rang the bell," Dortmunder reminded him, not quite an accusation. Kelp grinned and shrugged. "Respect your privacy." What an idea. "Sure," Dortmunder said. "Come on in." They started down the hall, and May, in the kitchen doorway, said, "That was very nice, Andy. Thoughtful." "Hiya, May." "You want a beer?" "Couldn't hurt." "I'll bring them." Dortmunder and Kelp went into the living room, found seats, and Dortmunder said, "What's up?" Not much." Kelp looked around the living room. "We haven't talked for a while, that's all. No new acquisitions, I see." "No, we still like the old acquisitions." "So," Kelp said, crossing his legs, getting comfortable, "how you been keeping yourself?" "May's been keeping me," Dortmunder told him. "She's still got the job at the Safeway, so we eat." "I figured," Kelp said. "You didn't call for a while. Probably you didn't have any little scores in mind." "Probably." Kelp said, "if you did have a little score in mind, you'd call me." "Unless it was a single-o." Kelp looked interested. "You had any single-os?" "As a matter of fact," Dortmunder said, as May came in with 3 cans of beer, "no." May distributed the beer, settled into her own chair, and said, "So, Andy, what brings you here?" "He wants to know," Dortmunder said. "Have I been working without him, maybe with some other guys?" "Oh, no," Kelp said, casually waving the beer can. "You wouldn't do that, John." Dortmunder drank some beer, in lieu of having something to say. May said, "What about you, Andy? Anything on the horizon?" "Well, there is one little remote possibility," Kelp said, which, of course, would be the other reason he'd happened to drop by. "I don't know if John would be interested." Dortmunder kept the beer can up to his face, as though drinking, while May said, "What wouldn't he like about it?" "Well, it's in New Jersey." Dortmunder put the beer can down. "They got a lot of domestic fires in New Jersey," he said. "I was just noticing on the news."